Hi everyone, welcome back to Waterhouse Forde. In today's video we're going to do an update on the starter motor. You can see we've got some goodies from KMP Brand, formerly known as Anglo Agriparts, and we also have in this box a replacement carburetor for the Ferguson TED20 that we are restoring. I've had a little bit of a sneak preview. I couldn't resist, I've opened them, I've had a little look. Now on the starter motor, if you go back just a couple of videos, you'll see we took a look at the starter motor for this tractor. We opened it up and reviewed the condition of it. And whilst it runs, it seems to work, and it seems to be in, I'd say, serviceable condition. I'm not sure how much longer it's going to last. And replacing bushers on this starter motor is not the easiest thing in the world to do. And I also had some concerns around the commutator. Subsequently had a bit of a conversation with one of our viewers around whether the commutator needs an undercut or not. And it seems that there's a divided opinion on this topic. I've done some research subsequent to that, and absolutely there does seem to be I would say, a general consensus that the undercut is not that essential on a starter motor or on a motor. It's more relevant on a dynamo or generator. Other people feel that you do need it, and as I say, there's a divided opinion on it. Nevertheless, I've avoided all of that. Not going to get into that debate. Instead, Anglo Agriparts, KMP Brand, they've got a really good replacement starter, almost identical to the original, and it looks like a really good product. So I'm really pleased to have that. So we're going to very quickly take a look at that. We'll quickly fit it to the tractor. It's just a couple of bolts, not a big deal. So we'll get that done, and then we'll take a little look at the Zenith carburetor as well. We'll talk around that. Whether we'll actually get to fit it tonight, I'm not entirely sure. We'll see how we go. But I wanted to run through it. I wanted to show you kind of how to set it up almost on the bench before we actually fit it to the tractor. Excuse me. And as I say, depending on how that goes, we may well get it fitted. I believe that it would be easier to fit the governor linkages and all of that first before installing the carburetor. So, but because these have just arrived, I thought we'd at least just have a quick look at it, and yeah, and then we'll make a decision whether to install it or not. But again, to be honest, without all the governor linkages and everything, installing it is again just two bolts or two nuts essentially. So not that big a deal. But anyway, that's for today's video. I don't think it's going to be a very long one. Just a couple of things to keep keep things ticking over, keep the progress moving forward on this tractor. I have also started work on the brakes on this tractor, and there'll be another video coming out reasonably soon on that. So again, if you go back in the videos, you'll see that way back we did a quick job on the brakes, in that we installed them really predominantly just to get the wheels back on the tractor so that we could move on to things like the engine, which we then spent many months restoring, many videos going through that, the steering box, etc. But always intended to come back to the brakes, which I've now started. And one of the excuse me, eagle-eyed viewers has also, in fact a couple of them, have identified that when I put the what's known as the brake cam shaft, which other people talk about the brake cross shaft. So it's basically the shaft that comes from, it runs between the tractor and the wheel essentially, and it's what the pedal acts on, and it has a cam inside, and that cam activates or pushes the brake pads. Anyway, when I installed those, I did put the linkage the wrong way around for the there's like a cam type arrangement on the inside of that shaft up against the body of the tractor, but it looks like I put the left one on the right hand side and the right one on the left hand side, and they were essentially upside down. So obviously I'll be sorting that out in that video as well. But Anyway, so just when we go over to the tractor, you'll see that there's I'm partway through working that, so the tractor looks a little bit different to when you saw it last, but just so you understand what's going on there. Anyway, let's get on with it. Okay, so over at the bench, let's have a look what we got. This is the starter motor. So it's a 12 volt 1.8 kilowatt is what it's labelled as. The part number looks to be 25038. I seem to recall that there's a slightly different, there is actually an Anglo Agriparts number for that. I'll put that in the description of the video because that is different to this one. But anyway, let's get into it. As I said, I have opened this, so I couldn't resist it. I had to have a little sneak preview. But to give you the kind of unboxing experience, I did put all the packaging back so you can see how this thing arrived. So as you can see, pretty well packaged, nice packaging to look, to protect the thing, is primarily to stop it moving around in transit in the box. But yeah, there we go. That's the new starter. Get the carburetor out of the way for a second. And as you can see, that is very, very similar, if not identical. Oops, not in frame, sorry. Where are you? Maybe I should move the camera. But anyway, that is very, very similar, if not identical, to the original. In fact, let me bring the original up here and we'll do a side-by-side comparison. So there you go. That's the two of them together. Now you'll notice that the body of the starter is a little bit shorter, but I have measured the holes on the where it basically mounts into the engine, and you'll also see that these two the actual starter gears are in the same position. This is pretty much lined up, and so those are in the same position. This is a lot chunkier, the original. This is a lot smaller, but you can see that spring is a lot thicker. It's made of a lot thicker material, and so my expectation is that it's the same rating as this one. In terms of the size of the starter itself, again, my assumption is simply that this is with technology and with improvements in manufacturing processes, etc., that essentially they've managed to make that a little bit smaller, which is not a bad thing. In terms of diameter, they're identical. There's no difference between them this way. And as I said, I've actually measured hole to hole here, and they are correct. I stand to be corrected, but I think it's 170 or 175 millimeters across the hole, something of that nature. But very, very simple. Well, these are identical. Looking at the back, we can see, obviously this one we had our damaged tin shroud over the back of the bush at the back here. On the new one, it's a slightly different arrangement. Here we've got, it's a completely encased closure with a bush inside there, and then you have this, it's basically a square drive on the back there. Not entirely sure. I guess that's if it gets locked up that you can actually wiggle it to get it loosened, I assume or presume. And then you've got your electrical terminal. So look, that's it. You've got a label on here, danger, start from the seat in neutral or park. Don't know that you have park on a tractor, but anyway. Starting in gear could cause serious injury or death. Heaven forbid that should happen. But nice touch. But pretty good, solid product. Again, it feels and looks to be well made, and I'm really happy with it. So again, thank you to KMP Brand for supplying that. We're going to get that fitted in a minute, but whilst we're here and we've got the camera set up, why don't we take a quick look at this carburetor just so you can see what it looks like, and then we'll come back and we'll go through it in a little bit more detail once we've finished with the starter. So again, pretty well packaged. and it comes with a bag of a couple of little bits. You've got the washer, the gasket in there. You've got the drain plug, and looks like we've got the fuel inlet adapter that screws in. So those come separate to the main carburetor. Nicely packaged. Okay, and there it is. And that is the proper Zenith, made in England, Zenith 24T carburetor. So yeah, it's very good. Looks to be very, very good quality. Throttle there, choke here. So let's check if this choke actually will engage. No. So this is the kind of thing I want to talk through. So there is this spring setting on the back side here, which controls how this butterfly moves. And the idea is that when you pull the choke lever and it pulls this on, that spring should then cause this butterfly to release, just like that. Now it might just need a bit of oiling, because obviously everything is fresh out of the factory, I guess. And or you've got these settings on here that you can use to adjust the tension on this spring on this side. On this side you've got a spring as well, which controls or gives you the return on your actual lever, and that feels pretty good. One thing I'm noticing though is that, just want to see, when you put your choke on, this is supposed to travel up to that bend and basically cause your throttle to open slightly. So I just want to, that's up against the idle screw at the moment. Obviously it's not been set up properly yet, but as that comes up, does it put pressure on? Yes, it does. There we go. So that's been set up properly, which is really good. So that just opens your throttle slightly when you put the choke on. So that's pretty good. We've got your air mixture screw at the bottom here, or your air mixture screw at the bottom, and you've got a nice dimple on there to show you where it is, and we'll talk through that in a second as to how you set that up. And the throttle, obviously that gets connected to your governor and is controlled by that. So got the metal gauze in the bottom, which is good to see. Many of the old ones, that's either bunged up or no longer in existence, and so it's good to see that there. Yeah, really pleased with that actually. That looks like a really good replacement. As I say, it is the original Zenith. You can buy cheaper ones from eBay and Amazon and etc. And of course those come from, most of them I believe will come from China. And I think most of them will do the job. They'll get the job done. They'll certainly get your tractor running again, and they will keep it running for a while. But this is the Dinkum proper one. We've got some proper blanks in there to seal off the machining holes or machining passages that they've had to cut in there. And we've got the idle mixture screw there as well. So yeah, look, really pleased with that. Let's put that away because we're going to quickly focus on the starter. So we'll just put that out of the way so nothing gets damaged. And yeah, let's go over. So what we'll do, we'll go over to the tractor. I need to find the bolts that hold this on. We'll go over to the tractor, we'll get this fitted. Again, it's literally a 2-minute job, so nothing great or nothing major to learn there, but you know, if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that we take you through all the good, the bad, and the ugly, and that's what it's all about. Ultimately, this is a video record of us restoring this tractor, so that was the ultimate intent behind the channel. So anyway, let's get this done, let's get it fitted, and we can then move on to taking a closer look at the carburetor. Okay, so over at the tractor here, obviously this is where the starter goes. A little bit of surface rust on there, nothing to worry about. There's no seal or gasket that goes on here, just the starter motor just plugs straight on. So I'm going to remove our screwdriver that's just keeping everything in time at the moment, just while we're doing this. And essentially what you want to do is you've got to get this gear over and onto the, or you've got to get all this past the flywheel, and then obviously that gets sits on the other side of the flywheel because it flies backwards when it's engaging. Now, one thing to note, I did have to open up these holes a very small amount, as in the bolt holes on the new starter. They were about 1 millimeter too small, but essentially, obviously that's no biggie. You just run a drill through there, and that opens them up. I've obviously cleaned out the hole, the threads with a tap. Same on the bolts with a die, just to make sure that these will all go in nicely. I need to just dig a little bit. That one doesn't want to seem to go in. Interesting. Not sure why. That one seems to be struggling a bit. Yeah. It's okay, it's just a bit. It's definitely going in. Okay, that's that one. Now obviously you've got a spring washer on these, and you want to make sure, because you want to make sure that this doesn't come loose. It would be a bit of a disaster if your starter suddenly fell off halfway across the field. So we keep these nice and tight with a spring washer to stop them from rattling loose. And there you go, new starter fitted. And I believe we can still get the screwdriver in to keep our timing just like that. Perfect. Well, that's that. Obviously we've got one of the other things that KMP Brand sent me is the wiring loom. So I do have a new wiring loom for this engine, or for this tractor. So that will be going on soon as well. But obviously that'll run through. I believe there's meant to be a saddle here for the wiring loom. So that probably needs to come off there. And obviously then you've got your wire that drops down to your starter, your main starter wire. And then you've got the coil sits here, and then the distributor, and that's pretty much all the electrics on this side, I believe. Obviously the distributor goes in here. You've got your plug wires up there, and then I think there is a oil pressure sensor goes here. Now that's a copper pipe that comes up, so we need to decide how we're going to route that. There's not much space behind the starter, unfortunately, so that may have to come up here and then across, something like that. But anyway, we'll get that. That's a future project. Right, let's go back to the bench and we'll have a closer look at that carburetor. Okay, so back at the bench, I brought you in, I think, a little bit closer, so hopefully you can see a little bit more detail here. So first thing I want to do is sort out this choke. Now, as I said earlier, when see if you can see down the barrel there, right? So in theory, when I lift or when I turn this choke, and especially when I get all the way to the end of its travel, which is there, this should close like that. Now you can see as soon as I touch it, it will go. Now I suspect what's happening is that we need to just oil these this shaft that's going through here a little bit. Otherwise, if that doesn't help, then what we need to do is we need to increase the tension on this little spring on the side here. And you do that basically by, you see you've got this kind of serrated washer here. So basically what you do is you grab that with a thin nose pliers and you pull it onto the neck slot, so just to tighten the tension a bit. And that'll cause it to have a bit more power to flip that butterfly. So first thing is to oil it. So I'll get the oil can. And what we'll do is we put a little bit of oil down on that spring, down into the shaft. We'll do it from the inside as well, on both sides, and on here. And that should hopefully work its way in there. I'll just do a little bit more. Okay, I feel like that's pretty well lubricated now, so let's see what happens now when we... No, it's still not going. It's right there, it's right on the cusp. So what we'll do, I'll grab a little pair of pliers and we'll just adjust that spring up one notch. Okay, so hopefully these will do. They're a bit big, but I'm hoping I can grab that spring. No, they're not going to work. Okay, found my little ones. Where are we? Here. There we go. So that's just moved up one notch. Now let's try. Still not going. Okay, take it one more. Come on. Let's try another one. There we go. Oh. Feel like that. It's definitely sticky. Feels to me like that tension should be enough there. I want to go one more just to see what happens, but you know, we're right up at almost as tight as that will go now, I think. Which yeah, see, that doesn't feel right. That should go. That should be freer than that. I'm tempted to just loosen this nut ever so slightly. Okay, I had a little bit of a mishap with the filming, with the camera, so I'm having to come back and kind of refilm this section. So where we got to was that when we enable or when we engage the choke lever, the butterfly wasn't flipping down, and what I decided to do was basically to loosen this nut off on the side here, this one here. And in fact, in the end, what I landed up doing is basically taking this whole shaft out, excuse me, and checking all the bushes. Unfortunately, the camera didn't catch all of that, and I'm not going to do it again, I'm afraid. So, but essentially what I did, I took all the shaft out, I checked everything. I couldn't see any obvious reason for it to be sticking like it was. Decided to put it all back together, and hey presto, it's all working fine. So in essence now what we've got, and by the way, I have adjusted this nut, so in other words I've loosened it just ever so slightly, like probably 1/8 of a turn from where it was, so loosened it ever so slightly, just to allow this all this mechanism in here not to be squished, not to be tightened up against the bushes, and that all now seems to be working fine. So as you can see, as soon as I start to move the lever, that butterfly engages, and as we get to the top of the travel of this lever, we see that it locks closed. You can just hear that clicking there. Okay, so that's what you're looking for. That's what we're aiming. That's what you need to achieve with that butterfly. So, in essence, this carburetor is now ready to put on. I do have the filming of me carrying on here now in the previous session, so I will just add that now to the video. But in essence, this carburetor is now ready to go on and be put into service. So very happy about that in the end. It's a little bit disappointing that I had to do that, and honestly I don't know what the issue was. I didn't actually find anything wrong in the end. Just taking it apart, putting it back together again, making sure there was plenty of oil on those bushes and on the shaft. It seems to have done the trick. It's possible that there was just a little burr or a little bit of shaving or something stuck in there that was preventing it from, or that was causing it to stick like that, and just dismantling it and putting it back together again has obviously sorted that out. So you may or may not encounter that if you go ahead and buy a new carburetor. But look, bottom line is it's a Zenith. It's the original part, made in England. Very happy with it. Great quality, and yeah, I'm looking forward to getting it on the tractor and ultimately getting the tractor running. But so the next video from here now will be putting the governor mechanism in. I've stripped it all down. I've cleaned everything up, repainted some parts, the dashboard in particular that needed painting, and that all now is ready to go back on. So that will be the next video. And yeah, I'll now switch over to the material, the video that I had previously captured. In terms of the other little bits, so I talked about doing this on the bench essentially, and so it comes with these few accessories essentially. So first of all, you've got the nut that, or the flange that goes, the fuel inlet, or is for the fuel inlet, and you also get a nice brass olive that would go in there. So you bring your pipe, your copper pipe in, put the olive on, put that in there, pop it in and tighten that up, right? So that will tighten up and squeeze the olive onto the copper pipe and make a really good seal. So what I'm going to do for now is I'm just going to pop that olive in there so we don't lose it. And we'll just get that to lay straight. And I'm going to put this flange on, but not tighten it because we don't want it to start squeezing the olive just yet. But that's there, that's nice and safe, we don't need to, or we hopefully won't lose it. And then the only other thing you've got is this drain tap, which obviously goes in the bottom here and just seals off the bowl. Now especially with a TVO, if you happen to stop the tractor on the TVO and the engine cools down, it won't restart on the TVO. You have to switch back to petrol, and obviously if you can do that on your fuel tap, no problem. But of course, if you've got TVO sitting in this bowl, then you want to be able to drain that out. So the idea is that you switch off your fuel, you drain this, as in you remove this, it drains all the fuel out. You pop it back, and then you open your tap onto petrol so that it then refills with petrol, and you should then be able to start your tractor no problem. The only other thing you've got, or that comes with it, then is the gasket, which sits on top, of course, and that will then mount onto the manifold with those two studs that we saw in the exhaust and inlet manifold video. So again, essentially we've got a spare of those now because the engine gasket set also came with one of those. So we've now got two. But that's fine, that's good. And that's it for the bench work, right? So this carburetor is now ready to go. Sorry, one other thing, excuse me. What we can do as well is just have a look at this, the main jet screw, right? So we can see we've got the dimple over there. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that, and that is actually all the way in, is it? Surely not. Interesting, that whole thing is turning off here now. Let's just take that out. I'm sure that this screw is supposed to turn without turning that nut off. It's very tight, but it does, yeah. Well, look, we're going to leave it there. I think we'll leave it where we found it for now. I'll just tighten that up here. I'll need to get another spanner for that, but we'll just nip that up because that shouldn't come loose like that. If you do need to set it, basically what you want to do is turn this in until you hit the resistance, in other words, until you hit the jet at the end, and then turn it back typically 1.5 or 2 turns. That's what you want to do, and that'll at least get you started, and then of course you can adjust it once your tractor is running. And very, very similar here for your idle screw. Turn it all the way in and then turn it out. On that one, probably 1 to start with, I would say. And if that doesn't work, you can come out another half, possibly even another whole turn. So between 1 and 2 turns on this top mixture screw. And then of course you've got the idle setting at the top here, which is obviously once you've got your tractor running and it's warm, make sure that the engine is actually warm before you try and adjust any of these settings. You can then obviously just adjust that, and that's got a nice strong spring on it which will hold that and prevent that setting from changing, which is pretty cool. So there we go, that's the carb. We'll get that onto the tractor. I think what I'm going to do is put all the governor linkage in first, and then we'll put it on. I think this is going to get in the way of us trying to get that governor linkage in beforehand, so no point struggling with it. We might as well get that in and then put the carburetor on, and that obviously then links in or connects here on this top throttle. But look, that's it for this video. I hope that that's been interesting. We've run into a few issues and not quite everything that I expected, but again, that's part of the process, right? Again, we show you the good, the bad, and the ugly, and yeah, sometimes these things do crop up and they kind of befuddle you, but we just work our way through it and take it one step at a time, and hopefully get things sorted out. So I'm going to wrap this back up. I'm going to put it back in its box so it's nice and safe, and we'll get it out again when we're ready to put it back on the tractor. So look, I hope you all have a good week, and see you on the next one. Cheers for now.